Woodrow Wilson said, "If you want to make enemies, try to change something." This was certainly true of Reverend Eric Carlson, an Augsburg Swedish evangelical Lutheran church in Baillytown. Assimilating to a new country could not have been easy for Duneland Swedish immigrants. Many of those in Duneland held onto their homeland connections for decades through language, traditions, and especially church. When it came time for Augsburg to transition into English language services, many church members objected. But it wasn't only language that Baillytown Swedes resisted. Eric Herman Carlson came to the U.S. from Sweden in 1893. He attended Augustana College and received his first call as pastor to Augsburg in 1912. Carlson was pretty forward-thinking and pushed boundaries. He supported women voting in church, encouraged adding English services and classes, and even talked to young people about travel, astronomy, marriage, and love. Older members often disagreed with Carlson's ideas. One story says that the first time Carlson preached a sermon in English, 2 church board members threw hymnals at him. Because of Carlson's interests in astronomy, many of the older men of the congregation questioned him. One congregant even admitted later that they considered him a nut and were worried because he seemed to disagree with the church's teachings about the age of the Earth. Perhaps if it was just astronomy, the conflict between the older members and Pastor Carlson may have resolved itself, but there was more. Around 1920, an Augsburg family either willed or sold to Carlson a piece of land along the west side of Mineral Springs Road. The church trustees and deacons believed that the property was intended for the church and not Carlson. Some board members were outraged that Carlson kept the land, but it is unclear what role, if any, this property played in future events. Over the course of a few weeks in spring 1922, 2 major confrontations occurred, the first one on Easter Sunday. After the Easter service, a deacon tried to call an official meeting to vote on removing Carlson, but Carlson wouldn't let the announcement be read. Although no physical blows were reported, one man was pushed off a platform. A few weeks later, on May 21st, another announcement was made to call for a vote. According to the Chesterton Tribune, Carlson, his sister, and his sister's 3 children attempted to block the reading. There was a physical encounter, and Carlson and his family members were charged with assault and battery. 3 days later, the congregation held their meeting and voted to remove Carlson. The Chesterton Tribune said it was due to his use of English and desire to give women the vote in church. Within a few months of Carlson's removal, the church made many language-related changes. They dropped Swedish from the church name, took meeting minutes in English, and gradually weaned out the Swedish language until it was only for nostalgia in a hymn or on special days like Christmas. Although he did not leave Augsburg on a high note, Carlson did not seem to hold a grudge. He completed his PhD in the sciences in 1926 and returned to Porter, to the disputed property that he owned. There he established the Carlson Planetarium, which ran from 1932 to 1951. He traveled and lectured at different universities, and was recognized for his work in astronomy until his death in 1950. Several factors may have motivated Carlson's removal from Augsburg, but most histories blame an overall resistance to change. Years later, many Augsburg congregants viewed the situation as a blot on the church's history, but forgiveness from both sides eventually made for a peaceful ending. In 1938, for the church's anniversary, Carlson wrote about the conflict. He said, "In spite of differences, both mental and physical, the sturdy, rugged individualism of the older people of Augsburg was to me a constant source of study and inspiration. We were all simply true Nordics."
Thank you for watching. Tune in next week for another video about Duneland Swedish immigrants.